It was nighttime by the hour Ash and Pikachu entered the door to the Ketchum household. The faint smell of his mom's cooking was still wafting in the hallways. Both of their stomach growled with great ferocity as the two had put all their concentration on the workload. Their eyes were tired, and the long journey back that happened this morning to top it all off had made the two just have less energy than usual. They really hoped that nothing would go wrong for the rest of the night. Pikachu arched his back and Ash stretched his limbs to work out the kinks before coming to the common room where everyone, somehow, was able to squeeze in. They were talking and didn't immediately notice Ash. It was May who spotted him first and offered him a place on the chair. Ash, however, declined, unceremoniously sitting on the floor next to the coffee table. As per her motherly nature, Delia already had his meal out in no time along with food for Pikachu. Resisting the urge to gulp it all down, Ash slowly picked on it as his friends asked him questions. "I'm surprised that you were able to finish all that in one day, Ash," Tracy said with a surprised face. Ash have him a blank stare. "Yeah, no. I only got it a quarter done and that's because most of it was a checklist for the battle facility. Made me and Pikachu search for hours on every nook and cranny in there. Still, it was a good way to see everything that place has," Ash explained. Gary, however, questioned this. "Who taught you to fill forms?" My teacher." Once again he had to stifle his tongue. "And that is?" Zoe rose an eyebrow at his unspecific answer. But Ash was saved by the intervention of his mother. "Oh. Who wants dessert?" She came in the room with cake in her hands. Immediately the delicious smell of fresh homemade pecha berry cake made everyone forget the unanswered question. Ash had glanced a quick look at his mom. He was shocked to see a more or less knowing wink at passed by unobserving eyes. He was defiantly going to thank her later. So Ash and Pikachu helped themselves to the sweet treat, however keeping an eye out for everyone. For some reason they felt strange. Like they were not used to this. But thinking back, they had spent nearly 3 months in either work, minor contact socializing and traveling like he used to and training Pokémon with intense concentration. This casual chaotic and somehow normalcy was just a bit uncomfortable. However, they would just have to get over it. They were their friends and they were here to see them rise to the status of a member of the battle frontier. So he smiled at them. "You know, I really missed you guys after these months." Pikachu agreed, but then his fur raised on edge. Quickly he jumped off of Ash onto the floor. "Pikachu, what's up?" "Hey Ash. It was Misty." "Oh, he. Thok. Why on earth didn't you tell me that?" It was then Misty noticed that her patented Misty mallet had not knocked Ash on the ground with a lump on his head. Merely he was wincing in pain rubbing the spot where it hit. "Geez. That's smarts. Gonna wake up with a headache tomorrow." Everyone's eyes widened, especially Tracy, who remembered taking the same attack before crumpling like a sack of rocks on contact. Ash merely seemed to just get a dent. As the pain slowly ebbed off, but it was still there, Ash noticed their looks. He smirked. "It wasn't just my Pokémon who got tougher. I trained as well, right Pikachu?" Pikachu pumped his fist up in agreement, letting out a cry. The trainer turned to Misty. "But seriously, what were you saying?" "I wasn't paying attention." Despite of what happened, he was still the old Ash at times as everyone's sweat dropped at his denseness of just being hit. Misty looked nervous. This got her off her game as Ash didn't do what he normally did, like get angry and yell, thus giving her the opportunity to explain properly like she usually would. It's rude that you didn't tell me that you got back from Sinnoh. Even ruder that you just went off to be a frontier brain without telling the rest us." Her face was blushing, but the trainer didn't seem to notice this. Ash looked down with a frown on his face. "Sorry," he said, truly sincere. If Misty's eyes could have widened any further, they would have. Everyone was silent. "It wasn't right of me to go off on this without letting you guys know." A look came over to his eyes before sitting down on the couch and holding Pikachu closely. "But, to be honest, I was scared." "Why would you be scared, Ash?" Zoe asked, looking concerned at the trainer. She had never seen this side of the boy she met. She was worried about him, but at the same time it was really cute. Ash looked away, a color of embarrassment flushed on his cheeks. Of you guys. I mean, I always talk about how I'm going to win every league that I enter and I seem to just come up short. I kind of felt like I disappointed you all as my friends. He was blunt about this, following his guts to not hide his feelings. This confession touched hearts of even the most latest of Ash's friends. Now this was not to say Ash was an recluse emotional person. It just so happened he wasn't really sensitive even about himself. But when you are around an extremely sensitive person for a while, finding how you react to things emotionally allows one to be more expressive about themselves. Brock went up to his friend, impressed by seeing this rare side of him. However, it seemed there was still a slight frown in disapproval still on there. I can see where you are coming from, Ash, but you shouldn't have run off. We could have helped you. And though Ash knew Brock said this out of concern, irritation still welled up inside of him. He wanted to tell Brock that how come they didn't make sure he was alright after his defeat. He wanted to ask them how come they never noticed he was battling so poorly. But Ash didn't. It wouldn't be fair. After all, he himself didn't notice his decline as a trainer. In the end though, Ash was kinda glad he didn't tell anyone. The whole point of becoming a frontier brain was to try a new direction in his life. If his friends tagged along, then that would be defeating the purpose. Also that Ash would not nearly have gotten as much done if they were all there. His friends were great, but they were not serious trainers. Not even Barry, though the kid had a good determination, he was still far more wet behind the ears. As he was thinking this, Pikachu had noticed his trainer was getting tired. Pikachu. Pikachu, he said, tugging at his shirt. The electric type faked a yawn and Ash got what he was saying. Hey guys. Looks like Pikachu is beat from today. So you mind if I turn him in? He asked with a grin. Despite of them wanting to talk to Ash more, they couldn't say no to that face. It had been a long day for them both, and maybe Ash would be more talkative when he had rested. Before they wished him good night, Ash turned around in confusion. Wait a second. Where are you guys staying? Gary waved him off to not worry. That's taken care of, the boys and I are staying at Gramps' place while the girls are resting over here. Ash and Pikachu suddenly freaked out. Wait. I don't know. Everyone was surprised to see a huge blush come over their faces. Mom. Is this allowed? I can go over and sleep at Oaks. Delia, however, smiled and put a comforting hand on his shoulder. It was just then that everyone realized that Ash was a little bit taller than her. Oh honey, you can still use your room. Don't worry about it. Though it's nice that you're acting like such a gentleman. Taking the compliment, Ash nodded before bidding everyone good night. Once again, they were all standing speechless at the Pikachu trainer's constant surprises in his personality. Misty, who knew Ash the longest, realized what he was implying and insisted going up to ask Ash, politely, to confirm her suspicions. She had left and everyone was left to their own, albeit confused, devices. They wanted to continue to discuss, but before they even sat back down, a loud piercing scream flooded the house. It came from Ash's room. It sounded like Misty. Everyone quickly rushed up the stairs to see what's wrong. There stood Misty at the doorway, a face of shock and disgust. Ash was there, frozen like he had been hit with a thunder wave, holding his shirt and sleeveless jacket, standing with a bare torso, while Pikachu stood still on his dresser with an equal look of shock and nervousness. His yellow face looked guilty as his eyes tried not to stare at his shocked human friends. As for the humans, their eyes returned to Ash. They found out why Misty screamed. Around Ash's lower torso were angry-looking scars that had marred his skin and making it look discolored. There were also some minor scratches and scars that also were around him, but they were very minor compared to the mural of burns that twisted and collided on his waist. Everyone looked horrified and it took May a few seconds to choke out her next words. Ash, are you alright? She ran up to him, knocking everyone off the paralysis spell. She tried to reach out to Ash, but instinctively he took a step back. His friends all rushed up as if he was just suddenly injured. Delia stayed behind, calmly watching how this will play out. Ash, how did this happen? Brock angrily demanded. He wasn't angry at his friend per se, but how this situation happened. It disturbed him to not know what Ash had been up to without him. After being at his friend's side for nearly 4 years, seeing the younger boy have this huge injury was just wrong. Ash stayed firm against Brock. He stared at everyone, feeling annoyed they were making such a big deal of this, and suddenly he felt very uncomfortable and felt bad they discovered this change this way. But it never occurred to him to tell his friends that, hey guys, I just took 2 hyper beams to the face to save a girl I like. Yeah, that wouldn't go over well. But Ash couldn't really get away with this, but what he could do at least was think this through. Listen, he said, holding his hands up to prevent them from jumping to unnecessary conclusions. I know I should have told you about this. But there was never a good time. And me and Pikachu just got here. We didn't expect you at all. So please just give us a chance to explain. But really, I would like to do that tomorrow. Why can't we learn it now? Dawn said angrily. Ash was tempted to glare but kept it in check. Because I am tired, and to be honest, remembering the situation to how I got these, he gestured to the burns causing the others to wince, is not exactly fun. Please, just let me sleep. Misty wanted to touch the scars, not believing they were there. Okay, Ash, she said gently but quickly took on her tough look. But, you better tell us what happened, mister. Ash relaxed. Sure thing. But then he tensed. But seriously. Get out of my room. I'm getting dressed here. Comedically, he shoved his friends out the door before slamming it in embarrassment. Even the normally dense trainer had a sense of modesty. Back in the living room, Avery was at loss of words for what would ever happened. With concerned looks casted towards each other, no more words were exchanged when the respective genders went their separate ways. The morning, and this time Ash wasn't surprised not to wake up to the cottage in the woods guest room. The familiar feel of his home bed told him he was at his home in Pallet Town. Pikachu was snoozing on his chest with sun rays making the yellow fur shine. Amber eyes lazily roamed around his room, the old posters, out-of-date TV, and Pokémon merchandise along with his Kanto, Johto and Hoenn hat lined on his desk. He frowned, remembering how his Sinnoh hat had been destroyed by those hyper beams. And in recalling that, our trainer let out a sigh. He had to tell his friends what happened. He really didn't want to do that. To Ash, making his friends worry was one of the worst things he could do. Luckily, he had time to think what he was going to talk about. Still didn't mean he liked it. His alarm showed it was only 7 o'clock, so he still had time to just lay in bed and rest. A small little frown was dotted on his face. Already a small little hollow feeling was in his chest. Probably where his heart was, as cheesy as that sound. He missed the salon maiden. Though he would see her in a few more days, it was still a little off-putting. He bet Pikachu missed Anabel and Espeon as well. He did a light groan. This is so cheesy. With ease that came from many years of practice, Ash slid out of bed without waking up Pikachu to get dressed in his, kinda new, Battle Frontier outfit. He wondered if anyone was awake yet, but decided it would be better to go down an hour later. Looking out eastern window in his room, the looming shadow of the battle castle glowed in the morning sun. It was bathed in the bright orange and red of the dawn, sticking out as a symbol of victory. It was Ash's victory. No, it was his team as a whole, it was their victory. In that grand building, they will thrive, and with them, so will he. Few more days until he would be officially declared as a full-blown member of the Battle Frontier. Hi Ka, Ash turned to see his starter waking up. Hey buddy. Out of compulsion he started to pet his electric type to help him wake up. Soon enough, Pikachu was rubbing against his hand. The faint charge of static coursed through the human's fingers as they rubbed through the fur. Hey, wanna go check on everyone? Pikachu nodded, now wide awake. Taking his usual place on Ash's shoulder, Pikachu urged the trainer forward. Ash, however, debated whether or not to go downstairs. Instead, he got an idea. Going out the eastern window, Ash was able to jump on a branch of a nearby tree. He was able to get down without any hassle, and best of all, he wouldn't disturb anyone in the house. He and Pikachu walked towards Professor Oak's lab. But when Ash meant everyone, he meant his Pokémon. It was time to move them to the Battle Castle, that is if they wanted to. His reason that it would be handy for the season to have his Pokémon at beck and call whenever someone would challenge him. I hope they don't mind being a bit away from the Pokémon labs after so long. Turning to his trusted buddy, it was his way to ask of the Pokémon's approval silently. Pikachu. The electric type merely shrugged, he didn't know. He was the wrong Pokémon to ask since he had never spent a single moment in Oak's Pokémon Sanitary. It all boiled down to the personal opinion of the rest of the team. Remembering that the boys were also staying in Oak's lab, Ash decided to take another detour off to the Pokémon Sanctuary. He went around the building past the border rocks around the place. With strength that came from many days of intense training, the human was able to bond over them like any Pokémon before him. Covered in a thick dense forest with plains, rivers, and rocky crags and caves dotting across it, this was a place to suit Pokémon of every type's needs. Some Pokémon were part of a human's team and some of them were wild. But the strange thing was that none of the Pokémon, even the rambunctious Primeape, didn't try to ward the human off, or even shy away from them like they would to any stranger who didn't follow the road. It was like the scent of the wilderness had permeated deep inside the trainer's skin. Whatever it was, Ash was completely oblivious to this, simply enjoying the walk and keeping an eye out for his Pokémon. Pikachu on the other hand did, and his cheeks sparked with pride on the fact that he did have a trainer like this. They really had come a long way since they met, and that so much has changed, but to those of the unobserved so much had stayed the same, and it was stronger still. This caused his black eyes to stare at his trainer, wondering about the inner and physical differences. Yes, for the most part Ash was still the same. He was still hot-headed, passionate and a bit dense. He was also still kind and caring, and the human still loved to make friends with everyone. But how he was approaching this normal traits were different. Pikachu had noticed that before Ash got hot-headed he had to have a good reason for that. To be passionate he expressed inwardly, and when the time was right outwardly, and when he was dense came to things that he was truly unexperienced about, and the human wasn't afraid to let people know that he didn't know about things. Ash was showing a type of kindness that came with gruffness and then surprising gentleness, and as for making friends, Ash wanted to get to know people, but now he didn't want to invade their personal space, letting things just take their course more. Did all humans have this happen to them when they grew up? He shook his tiny head at the thought. Probably not. It seemed they were all different, but that was okay. It added diversity to each and every team they encountered. Though musing in his thoughts, Pikachu was spotted a quick gray blur on the edge of his vision before it darted sneakily behind a tree. A sly little grin showed on his muzzle before tugging on a piece of his trainer's hair to get his attention. Ash leaned into what Pikachu was whispering and watched as the Pokémon pointed to the tree. He saw something go to before pointing up. And though Ash could not understand Pokémon with the fluency of the Salon Maiden, the bond between the two was enough to get Ash to have the same sly grin reflecting on his face too. Donphan. The ground type had jumped out from behind his hiding spot to surprise his trainer and the starter, however he noticed what was once there was nowhere to be found. Don. Larvitar. The rock-skinned Pokémon had came out of his hiding place too, just as confused as the rollout Pokémon before him. Soon enough some other of Ash's Pokémon were coming out to see what happened to their trainer and starter. Infernape, Weasel, Gabite and Muck joined the fray. Buoy Buoy. The sea weasel Pokémon asked the others to where did their trainer go. Infernape just shrugged while Gabite and Muck looked around. They looked around at lost before hearing some noise and giggles from above. Looking up they saw Ash and Pikachu on a tree branch giggling with Noctowl nudging them. Noticing they had been spotted, the human and electric type got down from their perch with the shiny Pokémon flying down with them. Nice try guys. Ash said referring to their attempts to sneak up on them. Everyone shrugged, Larvitar running up to his trainer with the same intent as usual. Ah geez. Ash said before being tackled to the ground by Larvitar's overbearing weight to hug and Gabite taking an affectionate bite of his head per usual. Pikachu, who had jumped out of the way, giggled watching his trainer fumble. A large shadow had been cast over him though causing his ears to droop in dread. Muck. Hearing the poison type's call, Pikachu let out a small squeak before being engulfed into what is the world's largest goop hug. Alright guys, enough. We've only been separated for a day. Ash said after he wrangled his head from the cave Pokemon's toothy grapple. Larvitar was clinging on his leg making it, once again, hard to walk. Can all of you gather everyone? I want to talk to them. Tell them to meet me around the start of the path. With obedience that came out of pure respect and loyalty, the Pokémon grunted before rushing off to find the rest of their teammates to meet up with their trainer. Ash looked to Pikachu who then looked at Larvitar, the toddler still clinging onto his pant leg. Only this time it was out of fun instead of fear. I'm not going to get you off, am I? Ash asked with a sweat drop. Said Pokémon looked up cheerily in defiance. I'll take that as a no. Ash said with a sigh. Looks like you'll need to go ahead of me, Pikachu. I may be a little bit late. Pipipippi. The mouse Pokémon giggled before bonding off to the path as Ash trudged behind dragging the heavy toddler on his leg. At least I can get a workout on this. He thought to himself, unamused by his Pokémon's antics. It took only a few minutes to get at the designated location, however it certainly didn't make the trainer feel better seeing all his Pokémon there ahead of him. Alright guys, listen up, he said, ignoring the weight still attached to his leg. Watching his Pokémon react, it amazed Ash how much devotion they showed, snapping to attention like a well-oiled machine. As you know, like Anabel and the rest of the Frontier Brains, I have been assigned a battle facility as well, and in it is a place where all of you guys can hang out, but I totally understand if you would rather remain here, Ash announced. He watched them all seem to muse about the benefits of going there, some even talking to the others. I'll give you guys some time to think about it, he decided to say. The Pokémon appreciated that. But they saw their trainer looking up to the sun for some reason before his Luxray grin showed on his face. And we have time, who wants to do some training for a little bit? The human asked with his amber eyes flaring blue. The response was unanimous. It came to an all-out, duke-out, brawl. Pokémon and one human fought against each other to expend the morning energy they had pent up inside them to get the day started. 30 minutes was enough to warm them up and get them ready for anything. However, this also left empty stomachs, making the trainer and his team temporarily go their separate ways, leaving Ash and Pikachu walking back to the Ketchum house. Pika Pika. A pleasant scent hit the electric type's nose before he notified his trainer about it. Everyone must be awake then, Ash said with a grin. Hopefully his friends should be in a better mood for him to tell his tale. Though in the back of his mind, the trainer noticed that this breakfast didn't have the smell of berries like he had grown used to for the past months. He debated whether or not to climb back up to his room, but thought better or it, finding that his friends should understand him wanting to go out and not wake them up in the morning. Though they might question why some of his clothes were scuffed up. From inside towards the kitchen, Delia heard the door open up, a confused look on her face, wondering who was entering since everyone was already here. When seeing her son and Pikachu enter made her wonder if Ash will be sneaking out more often, and thinking about it made her smile mischievously on what the future might hold with this new habit. Making eye contact with each other, Ash grinned a bit sheepishly before looking at his own cloths, which were a little bit dirty. Pikachu's sweat dropped as well, knowing it partially his fault for some of the scorch marks in his cloths. The mother smiled before bringing a washcloth and began to scrub the marks. In no time at all they came off. She saw their surprised face at the ease of the cleaning. His mother explained. After your last little incident, I called in some favors to make these set of clothes special, since you always seem to get into trouble at time. So you don't have to worry about those clothes going away anytime soon. She gave him a stern glare though. However, I don't think they will stand another hyper beam attack, do you understand, mister? Both the human and Pokémon withered under her stare. Yes ma'am. Hi Pika. Hey, is that Ash? Max poked his head through the kitchen entryway. Once this was said, all the heads of Ash's friends emerged looking at him strangely. With looks asking him, where had you been? They whisked him away onto the main chair with them surrounding him as an interrogation. Misty was giving him the look like she used to when he did something stupid when he was 10. Good times. Ash thought sarcastically. Though he had to admit that he needed that constant look to get his head straight early on his journey. His eyes wandered to Professor Oak drinking coffee in the kitchen table, ignorant to what is transpiring. Sue. Ash's eyes snapped back to the group in front when one of them spoke. Their stares were starting to make him feel nervous. He wasn't the only one. Static was emitting from Pikachu's fur, causing small tiny pulses of electricity down his nerves whenever fur made contact with skin. Well, Ash, Misty said. Everyone behind her nodded, feeling like it was best to let her take the lead. Ash snorted. Well, good morning to you all too. This broke the ice a little bit, causing everyone to look sheepish. Sorry Ash. May was the first to say. But it's that. We really want to know why you have those massive. Barry's mouth was covered by Zoe's hand. Oak had paused for a moment, wondering what they were saying before going back to his coffee. Ash and Pikachu looked at each other and sighed. Alright, here's the deal. It was during my training for the Battle Frontier, but he called them out before they began to speak. It wasn't because of that training I got these. He hinted at the scars. It was an accident. See, me and my teacher were helping out some of the local Pokémon. See, there were 2 territorial ones that have moved in and the local ones needed help. Everyone saw the trainer's eyes narrow and his shoulder tensing. Pikachu also frowned and his tiny claws were digging into Ash's shoulder. However, it became more than what my teacher expected and was in the way when they attack. So I pushed them out of the way. And that's how I got these. Ash explained as simply as he could, yet that still didn't fill the curiosity of his friends. What attack gave you marks like that? Gary asked, not recalling any such move. Ash and Pikachu winced, fearing they would ask them this. But knowing that they would to continue to pester them, it was best to simply get over with it. It was more of attacks really, 2 to be exact. And what? Misty asked, getting irritated. They were hyper beams. He whispered. What? Everyone yelled out at the top of their lungs. You were hit with 2 hyper beams. Brock yelled out loud, ignoring their quiet conversation they were trying to keep. The sound of someone spitting coffee in shock came from the kitchen. Everyone turned to see Professor Oak having a coughing fit with spewed out coffee on the table. What? He immediately ran up to the trainer and began to shake Ash like he was a madman. What on earth are you saying that you took 2 hyper beams? You shouldn't be alive, man. He turned to the kitchen where Ash's mom was. Delia, do you? Yes, I know about Ash's incident. Scott informed me as soon as he knew. So long as Ash has proper medical care and comes out alright and whole, everything is okay. Right, Ash? Delia's voice asked from her location. Right, Mom. Ash gave a thumbs up in return. He turned to everyone. See, I'm fine. Besides, it's not like I haven't been injured before. Pikachu. The electric type agreed, reminding everyone that the electric type has indeed injured Ash in the past. But why did you have to take the blow? Dawn asked shyly. She knew she sounded insensitive, but really, why did her best friend had to be injured and not some stranger? Ash's protective side got irritated. Because I could handle it. Listen. He got out of Oak's grasp and stood tall in front of everyone. My teacher was my friend, and even if they weren't, there is no way I will stand by and watch someone be threatened like that. Nothing's going to change that, right, Pikachu? Hi Pika. At this, everyone who knew Ash and Pikachu could not argue with this, and anyone who was new to this information like Barry and Zoe saw a very new side of Ash. As for Zoe, her crush for him only grew seeing how selfless he really was. Now, Ash said, looking at everyone sternly. Can Pikachu and I get some breakfast, please? At this, everyone laughed, forgetting that meals were important to these two. And so, our heroes were finally able to eat their meals and had a good time listening to everyone's stories on what happened during the past year or even the short time they had been separated. Meanwhile, as Ash and Pikachu and others were having fun far away or not so far away, some other familiar faces were having trouble. A plumage of smoke could be seen in the middle of nowhere. A large bus surrounded by 8 figures. Several of them were working around the bus while others were standing on the side doing absolutely nothing. The air was thick with irritation. So the curse of the initiation bus really is true after all. Anabel said in disbelief. She had heard tales from the other brains that whenever there was a battle frontier innate, the bus was always going to break down. Now, being a normally logical person, she did not believe in superstition. However, seeing this for herself, Anabel may just start to reconsider. Another explosion emerged from engine, and now black fumes were emerging from the bottom of the vehicle L as well. Scott and Nolan had to emerge out of it, coughing and covered in grease. Brandon stood on the side looking as his usual unimpressed self. Oi oi oi. I never know why we take this hunk of metal during every initiation. It always breaks down and we get stuck out in the middle of nowhere getting stares by passing trainers until we get the dumb machine fixed. Greta groaned, slapping her palm to her face. Beside her, Lucy, Spencer, Tucker and Anabel sighed, looking at the mess. "'Tis a fine mess indeed." Tucker disdainfully. "This is why I dislike motorized travel." Spencer said, who would have much preferred to travel by Pokémon as it was better for nature and to some extent his own health. Nolan ignored their complaints. He grunted, looking at the damage. "Geez. At this rate we won't be able to get to Pallet Town until 3 days. 3 days was a new record for how late they were going to be. For Anabel's introduction into the battle frontier, it took them a full 2 days, not including the day she left, to get to her own battle tower. Lucy immediately addressed the problem. "Our newest member will be getting worried soon if we don't send something to tell him the problem." Everyone turned to Anabel. "Wait. What? Hey guys, want to help me show my Pokémon around the battle castle?" Ash asked to the rest of his friends once they were all done with the morning. Everyone was eager to see more of the battle castle, and helping Ash was the least they could do after putting him through that moment this morning. And so the group of humans following Ash and Pikachu to the Pokémon Sanctuary, which the two had been previously. Oak led the way, opening the normally locked door to the area. When walking along the path, there are not many Pokémon in sight, all of them preferring to keep away from busybody humans. "How are we going to find all of Ash's Pokémon?" Max asked, looking around the empty area. He knew that even with trainers it was kinda dangerous to go off out there not knowing where to go. Ash turned and smiled. "Hey, don't worry about it," he said before letting out a piercing whistle in the air. "They should be coming soon." As soon as he said that, already a small figure came running towards him. Stubby arms wide and a gleeful grin on his face. Like any child who adored either a parent or friend, Larvitar already missed his trainer and was happy to see him again. Larvitar. Brock and Misty stood in shock at the familiar face as Ash prepared himself, this time being able to barely catch the toddler and holding on to him. Noticing the other human around him, it came to a major surprise to the gym leaders seeing the rock-skinned Pokémon wave to everyone so casually. Max and Dawn got up close with stars in their eyes. "Oh wow, Ash. I never knew you had a Larvitar," Dawn said, petting the little Pokémon who smiled. Though to the trained eye it looked like he was struggling to keep smiling. To some aspects he was still uncomfortable around humans, though he was a lot better. Brock and Misty approached the trainer with his Pokémon, cautiously not believing what they were seeing. "Is that?" Misty asked, eyeing the little guy. Pikachu nodded. "Pikachu." He patted the rocky skin of Larvitar. "Yep. This is the same guy who was with us in Johto. He found me along with his mom. Apparently he's been wanting to tag along with me during my journey so to get stronger." Ash smiled, recalling the memory of Larvitar battling against the fierce Giratina. "And despite of how short of a time he's been with us, Larvitar is already really powerful. He's a great team member." Brock looked impressed at the powerful rock type. "I'm impressed, Ash. Raising Larvitars are no small job. Especially since they are very heavy sleepers and are considerably heavy for their size." It was then Brock noticed that Ash was holding the really heavy Pokémon in his arms. He was taken aback seeing this. Ash smiled blissfully. "Yeah. He is kinda heavy since last time we saw him." "Gah. Gah." It sounded like a Pokémon was looking for someone. Hearing the sound of his friend's voice, Larvitar got down from Ash's arms and called over his friend. The cave Pokémon grinned seeing his friend, trainer and starter, and walked up to them. Dawn, Zoe, Barry and Brock recognized this little guy as well as Ash's former Gibble, and so Ash had to explain to the group that yes, the little mischievous Gibble did indeed evolve during one of his battles during his time with his teacher. But enough talk when all of his Pokémon had come ready to move over to the battle castle. All of them figured it would be best to stay over there while Ash was here and then move back to the Pokémon professor's place when their trainer is off journeying. Several of his smaller Pokémon on the back of Torterra and his other friends let out some of their Pokémon to talk to their old friends in Ash's team, which seemed to please our hero's Pokémon greatly. Upon seeing the battle castle, the Pokémon looked on impressed at the building before following Ash and the rest of the humans inside. They were immediately led to the very large and very nice zone of flora and landscape. Berry trees, flowers, ponds and caves for shelter during storms. It was like the VIP room for Pokémon sanctuaries. Immediately the curiosity of all the Pokémon, including Pokémon from his friends, especially Piplup, made them wander around checking out the area. Ash told him when they were done to meet him up in his study when they were done checking this place out. He needed them to help him with a survey and counting a few items that were supposed to be in stock for this place. He grinned with Pikachu seeing the excited faces of their friends and team members search around excitedly. They excited, however something caught Ash's sixth sense so to speak. Someone else was around his facility and he knew it wasn't his mother or Oak. Pikachu seemed to sense it too with the electric giving Ash a blank stare. Pikachu. Ash shook his head. No, this doesn't seem like their style. Team Rocket usually goes for mechs or there's some sort of strangeness going on. Still, they were stumped to what could be in here. It wasn't a Pokémon either. Ahem. Excuse me, sir. Hearing a voice coming around the corner, Ash and Pikachu's eyes widened seeing a familiar purple-haired person that they did not expect to see. Paul.